and you already have Michael Carter under contract, so he projects more as like a slot and a safety type guy. So, you know, but yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Like in terms of like people that you hadn't heard about in a couple of months. So, but that's what happens now. It gets into a frenzy, and then, and then now it's one more day, and that's it. And then we see what happens. And, we don't know what Muji and Glenn, we don't have a track record. I know Mark can go back and see what he did in Denver, but I don't know how much authority or input he had in those drafts. And we know that Glenn, he's a defensive minded guy, but he also had a scouting background. So,
Yep.
and we don't know out of the two of them who makes the final decision, or if Spielman is the deciding vote, with him calling in from Florida or wherever he is. So, there's a lot of things that we don't know, and maybe, we'll have a better idea maybe next year after we see what they do this year.
Yeah. Let's I mean, I think that it's Warren, man. But if Campbell and them are still available, or Membu, I still think they're going to do the offensive line, and I think people are going to be upset. But who cares? If you have a good line, you can run the football, and that's what the Jets want to do. So,
yeah, like I said, Samini had a couple of polls that he did. Again, Twitter polls, who cares? But it's always been Membu and Warren. And the two that I saw him do in the last month, it was like Membu would always get like 40%, and Warren would get like 35 or 34%. So, so I don't know if there's that much, anger out there if it's Membu. It seems like he's always the guy that everybody, the majority, now, a plurality of people want, but between the two of them, I think I can't complain in either way.
yeah. Mark, can you talk yet or no?
Yes and no. How you doing? Good morning.
Good.
Hey, Mark. Good morning.
Hey, man. Good morning. Yeah, we're one more sleep away. Okay, so that's good because I'm ready to start to see what this first round looks like because I'm curious to see because there's going to be a what do you call it? Like there's going to be a trickle down effect to the other rounds. Like I see folks keep being like, oh, we should be talking about the second round, third round. I'm like, well, it really for the Jets, it really depends on how they handle this first round because what needs are they going to? And that's for every team, but for the Jets in particular, like they have a lot of needs, and so it's going to show what direction they're heading. Like for example, what I understand Membu being, I still think they're going with Membu. I would like them to go with Warren in the trade down, but I think they're going to pick Membu because it's the simplest answer. They need a right tackle, and Membu's been a right tackle, and they want to run the football. And Membu, when you look at him play, is very aggressive, and they need that on the line because really the only other real power guy is John Simpson. Like Tittman's got the size, and maybe you could put him in there, but ABT's more of a zone guy, and Fashion is more of a pass pro guy. You know what I mean? And then you've got Carter, Warren, and Mitchell on the right. So, like, if you really want to build your five, and for folks that are like, oh, well, it's too many first round picks on the line, I totally get that. I kind of am in that camp too. Like, at some point, could you be a team that develops second round talent? Like, is that possible? Other teams do it. But if you want to run the football, and you want to run the football this year, mind you, and by the way, it's not a pick for just this year because if you've got a starting five up there and you get a young quarterback, I mean, how many? No one wants to talk about it, but how many times in Zach Wilson's first year was the guy running for his life?
Yeah, Mark, and their play calling was awful. It was all safe. It was safe. There was no really. They were afraid Zach was going to make mistakes.
Well, it's a defensive-minded head coach not knowing how to bring along a young quarterback too.
Mark, it's crazy because I tend to go back and watch the 2009 season a lot, and man, Sanchez was brutal, man, at times, like really bad. I mean, he had what, 11 touchdowns and 20 picks? Like, and the Jets still had a winning record, obviously because of the defense. But I can't imagine Fields being this bad. No way. So I'm actually intrigued, man. He's a young, talented quarterback, and he has upside. He just needs to hit the right way, and if he does, then the Jets got a steal in free agency. But most folks, including me, I have my doubts about it. But I'm willing to give Fields a chance for sure.
If the Jets can hit a quarterback, Pete, it solves so many problems. Like, it means that in 26, regardless of where the pick is, you can fill out other spots of your roster. And also, on the cash side, you got it for 2 years, right? So now you're like, okay, well, I don't know the full money ramifications. You can probably speak to that, but it's just, if they hit on him, it's incredible. The Jets have been in purgatory since 2015, right? At least.
Yep. Well, they haven't. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick was still quarterback purgatory in my eyes.
Let me ask you a question.
He had one good year.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and that's what Fitz does, right? But let me ask you a question, and everybody a question. What sort of year out of Fields would you need to see to be like, okay, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't take a quarterback at 26?
I still think they need to draft somebody, Mark, just in case.
With a first rounder, regardless of the year he has?
Mark, let's see. I mean, if he averages 200 passing yards, that's 200. I mean, that's 3,400 yards in 17 games. And 200 yards is not a lot of passing yards.
I think the other question,
I probably need to see more.
I think the other question would be, for the people that aren't comfortable with Justin Fields, would be, well, can he do it again if he does have a decent season? And then it would also be, well, if he had a decent season, can he get better? Is that his ceiling? Like, is that good enough to get us to the playoffs and advance? And that's, but yeah, I agree. I kind of agree with you, Mark. Like, I mean, at what point does a good Justin Fields season, at what level does it basically say, well, we don't need to get a quarterback in the first round? And frankly, if he does have a decent season, maybe we're drafting in the middle of the teens where there isn't a quarterback prospect. So it might just, it may just rectify it may just answer its own question, and then that means maybe you get somebody in the second round or something, the way Philadelphia got Hurts. And everybody was like, well, why did you do that? You had Wentz or something, but yeah, I don't know what I don't know what the statistics are, to be honest with you, because look at the misleading statistics about Rodgers, and it translated to 5 wins. So, I mean, to me, is he a leader out there? Does the team rally around him? Does he lead the team? On a come from behind victories? Does he lead them back from behind to win a couple of games? Like, those are the things I would look for in terms of like whether or not he's capable of being an NFL starter. That's what I would look for. And again, it might just be how many wins we get with him. And like I said, and that would answer the question, because like if we're out of the top 10, then chances are, there may not be a quarterback prospect worth taking, like in the teens. You might have to take him later in the draft.
Posh, you came up. What's on your mind?
So,
Morning, Kosh.
hey,
How are
good
you?
morning, guys. I love listening to you guys. You guys are my sports radio. I love listening and learning from you guys. Shout out, representing Bougie Sports, All Girls Sports Podcast. Um, so the day before the draft, the key thing is I want to know from you guys, which players have that adaptability when it's week 4 and they got film on you, because every rookie player can be that flash in the pan, like like Shador, whatever, like that. But which I'm just the thing is, are they able to adapt when Kyle Shanahan has film on you? you know, when like I love my Brock Purdy, but he struggled week 4. When people had film on him, and thank God my Browns got the best of them. But what, which it's the day before the draft. You want to look at the players in a different light. Which players, before you pick, which players have skills that you know aren't rigid, where when everybody has film on them, when everybody's got their number, when can you translate them? When can they move to something else? Because that's the problem I see with rookies sometimes. You know, that's what Deshaun struggled with. Well, besides the health problems, but before that, my Deshaun struggled with. So, which the day before the draft, I think that's where everybody the talk should go move towards. You know, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Posh. And that's common criticism, I guess, for quarterbacks, largely because it's okay when they get out there. What's it going to look like? I mean, let's take. I think here's a good example to talk about, which is who's the guy who's incredibly talented and has like very poor production. Is it Shamar Stewart, the guy with like really lousy production in college and is very raw, but he's got all the talent in the world, right? And so defensive minded coaches see the guy and they're like, oh, we can mold this guy into a premier player in the league because he has all the talent. Um, there's a ton of dicey. I mean, there's some real dicey people in this draft, and the quarterback position in particular is like I've been hearing folks talk about how bad this quarterback class is, and of course, we're not going to know until another whatever 2 years out. But I don't know, Posh. That's a difficult question to answer because you got to see these guys, function as pros. You got to see what happens after they put on NFL weight, right? With the full off season, you got to see are they the right scheme fit? What team do they go to, and is that the right team for them? Because some of these guys move on to their second team and then start going. Let's say whatever. Mekhi Becton was very controversial here in his first couple of years. Turns into a starting guard and goes and gets a ring. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult question to answer come draft night. And also, I can tell you this much from a Jet perspective: these coaches are not lacking in confidence. Like they are banking on their ability to not just evaluate talent at the start, but they're also banking on their ability to coach. Like Glenn has said it multiple times how important it was for him to assemble a coaching staff that can develop talent. So so whoever they get, I mean, I'm going to be looking at the coaching trajectory for these players. I'm hoping, frankly, that some of these players that they drafted that we all have chalked up as busts, that they actually start playing better. What are the chances of that? I mean, Jeremy Rucker, can this guy play? Because if he can, are we jumping up and down about Tyler Warren as much? If they hit on record, I don't think so. Anyway, Hector, what's your good morning?
Good morning, guys. How's everything?
Good, man. How you doing?
Hector,
We're
what's up?
dealing with this smoke, Petey. Mark, I don't know if you guys saw it in the news, but our whole community's full of ashes that blew from Waretown where the fire started. It's
Oh
a
no.
pretty big fire. Yeah. Smells like it smells so bad. Walking the dog.
Hope everything's okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It's
By
okay.
the
It's just a
way,
mess.
if you guys look in the listeners section, Nick, I think that's a Tyler Warren profile. That's pretty fire. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh yeah, the 44. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
I'm mixed. I
I
like a
think
weapon, but I wouldn't mind a
Hector.
pepper.
I think the pick has to be if Membu isn't there, because here comes Nick. I saw Bobby just said, barring any changes, that it's going to be Will Campbell, their pick at 4, which is, I mean, who takes Membu then is the question. Or is he there at 7? If he's there at 7, I think the Jets take him. If not, it's Warren.
What if they go
Nick, you're
defense,
up here.
Pete? What if they do that and say, you know what? We haven't heard anything about defense, right? Not even from the Jets. What do you call it? Podcast? Like, him and Baldinger, and they've all been talking about the offensive side of the ball. What if they go defense?
Then remotes are going to get thrown, Mark.
I can't get on board with defense. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
How are
I'm
you, Nick?
doing well. I'm here. I got a
Good.
uh I got a later shift today. I'm working from 3 to 11 p.m. So, I'm around. I'm here. I'm excited for tomorrow though. Tomorrow happens to be my girlfriend's birthday, so we're doing a little dinner. I'll probably miss the first like 3 or 4 picks or so, but then I'll definitely be home by the time the Jets pick because the reservation's at 7 o'clock.
Right.
It's gonna be good.
Well, good luck with
I
that.
appreciate that. I think it's gonna be good though. I think that it's gonna be Cam Ward 1, then probably Trav 2. The Giant. I think it really starts with the Giants at 3. Um, I I think they'll probably end up trading it, but I mean that's hard to say. If they had to keep it, probably Abdul Carter, but I'm not so sure about that. And then like you said, I feel like the Patriots will go tackle just because they need one badly. Um, and then the Jags, I have no idea. Be honest with you.
They're the wild
Yeah,
card.
I have no idea what they're gonna do. It's nuts.
Most like, yeah, real quick, Nick. Most likely at 9 o'clock, Antoine Staley will join.
Okay,
So
cool. That's what's up. I like it.
if you guys have any questions or whatever, and you want to come up or fire them away.
What did you decide if you're going to MetLife or if you're gonna go to Joe's?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to MetLife.
Okay.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's cool. Wait,
I went there once
you went once?
during the draft. It was the Leonard Williams draft.
Oh, yeah, I think I was there for that too. I went a couple times. I went Leonard Williams, and then I went. Shoot, when I went another time, but I forget. Um, but it's always a good time. They have like the autographs and stuff. They have like some of the players that come. It's fun for the kids.
Agreed. That's for sure. What? So Nick, you want them to take Warren, correct?
Yeah, I think that they have to. It's either got to be Warren at 7 or see if you can call the Steelers and they come get Shador, or call anybody. Hey, do you want 7? If you can move down to like 14 ish, like, or even if you move down to 21 where the Steelers are, and then you jump back up, like you can find an elite weapon like Burden or even Loveland from Michigan. Like you can find somebody like that, 14, 15 ish, and pick up a second rounder, then the possibilities just open up. I mean, I don't hate staying at 7 if it's Warren. I don't really love staying at 7 if it's Membu because you can move down and then you can just take the kid from Texas, um, Kelvin Banks, who's arguably better.
Yeah, he's. I think Banks is like shooting up the
Yeah,
boards too.
yeah. I mean, he's arguably better. So I think
Is he
that I
better?
would. Kelvin Banks,
Yeah.
from what I've seen, I mean, I don't watch the tape, but like I watched a ton of Texas football this year. I watched probably 5 or 6 games just because of they were playing on national television so much. I watched Mizzou maybe once or twice, and I saw Brady Cook getting hit a lot. I'm not sure if that's necessarily Membu's fault, but I don't know if I saw Ewers get touched much at all. I mean, and when he did, they just put in Manning, and he didn't really get touched either. So, but there's also another wild card. I have no idea. The receiver from Texas, Golden, the kid that ran the 4.2.1 or something like that, like 4.28. I have no idea where he's gonna go. He can go like as high as like 10 or like second round. It's crazy the disparity on him.
What's the guy's name from Ohio State? The wide receiver.
Buka,
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot about him, but he's going to go. I bet middle of
yeah,
the first round or in
that
the
feels like a
teens.
Seahawk to me because they just dumped DK and Lockett, so they're in desperate need of a receiver. If you paid Sam Darnold all that money for Jake Bobo to be your wide receiver too, that's a lot of trouble.
We're just talking. If you guys want to come up and speak, please do so.
I gotta find that tweet that I saw the other day. What would you do, Petey? Warren?
I don't want to take a tight end at 7, but uh, to be honest, if the tackles aren't there, you have to take them, and I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah. What about McMillan? Do you have interest in that?
No,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't like if it wasn't Justin Fields, I wouldn't hate McMillan. But with Justin Fields, I can't really get on board with that because, like, I don't think they're going to be passing so much. And, um, I mean, Garrett Wilson's obviously incredible, but the receiver that they picked up and the other one, Tyler Johnson and Lazard, like, I mean, they're none of them are fantastic. None of them are even good per se, but I feel like they all willingly block, which is important. Run block, which is going to be a big factor this year. But we'll see. I think Warren, like I said the other day, I think it was Tuesday. Warren is a not even a willing blocker. Like he likes blocking, which I think is also important. So, and the Jets in my lifetime, other than like 2 years of Dustin Keller and 3 weeks of Chris Herndon, have not had tight end production ever. Not, I can't remember. I hear like the stories about like Mickey Schuler and the other guy, but like I just can't remember them ever having tight end production before. So that would be a welcome to change of pace when every good team seemingly has one. Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Kincaid, Laporta, Kittle, like all these good teams that are in Super Bowls and making the playoffs and won seeds and winning 14 games. TJ Hawkinson, like all these teams seemingly have one. I'm not sure if that's a common denominator or not, but I think it's important to have that position in 2025.
Neil, what's up? You guys hear me?
What's up, Petey?
Good morning, Neil. Do you see Neil Banks? Not Neil. Calvin Neil Banks.
I can't.
Calvin Banks shooting up the
Calvin.
board. Yeah,
Um, I don't see him shooting up the board. I don't see him shooting up the board, but I think he'll be a guy who's picked in the top 13, 14 picks. I think the board's starting to kind of take some shape here, especially the top 9 picks. You know, it looks like Ward's all but done. He's probably already got a house in Tennessee. It seems Cleveland is a lock to get Travis Hunter. I know the owner for the Giants wants Shador, but I think cooler heads will prevail, and they'll go with Abdul Carter. Um, Will Campbell seems like a lock to the Patriots at this point. I do think that with Liam Cohen being the new coach at Jags and him bringing that offensive perspective, that Genty is going to be the pick for the Jags. I think that's going to be a pretty big curveball, which would push Membu down to the Raiders at 6. Do think the Jets go Tyler Warren at 7. And then I think 8 and 9 are both going to be Georgia guys. Jalen Walker going to Carolina and Michael Williams going to the Saints. So then you get the Bears up on the board with Mason Graham on the board. Um, they could also look at Kelvin Banks because their left tackle Braxton Jones is a good player, but I don't think he's a lockdown. The one thing there though is they invested a ton on the offensive line this year. They traded for Joe Tooney. They signed Jonah Jackson. They signed Drew Dahlman to be their center. They did just draft Darnell Wright to be their right tackle a couple years back. You know, I guess that Mason Graham could be a possibility there. They do have Jervon Dexter, the defensive tackle they drafted out of Florida, and they signed DJ Reader, who they're not young guy, not a young player by any means, but it was a very highly productive player. So I think ultimately they're going to do everything they can do to give Caleb Williams everything that he has, and I think they'd go Calvin Banks. So I could see him going 10th to the
Neil,
Bears.
Neil, do you think the Bears are going to be good this year?
I don't know if I believe in Caleb Williams, to be honest. So I think at best they finished third in that division. I think they're a good trade back team if someone's willing to trade up there, because I know they really want to get a running back. And I think 10's a little rich for Marion Hampton. But maybe you get a team like Atlanta who's sniffing around that pass rusher market to move up 5 spots and throw you a 3rd-round pick.
Hey, Neil, what about McMillan? You got him dropping like a rock?
No, I think honestly the way I saw Peter Schrager's mock today, and I'm not trying to steal his thunder, but in the scenario I just outlined, I think at number 11, Walter Nolan for the 49ers is a guy that I've heard that they're smitten about. So I think he could go, and I think Ted McMillan would go 12 to Dallas in that scenario. I think pairing him with a CJ Lamb, you got CD Lamb, who's top 3 receiver in this league for the last 2 years. Then you go get the pterodactyl radius catcher and Ted McMillan on the outside. You've lined Dak up with a really good tandem of receivers on the outside. So I still think he's going to go first receiver. I know there's a lot of love for Matt Golden because he ran a 4.29 40 at the scouting combine. On tape, he's not a 4.29 player. He looks like a 4.5 guy to me. He doesn't play that fast. Football speed and underwear speed are different. And I think Golden is a combine where I actually don't like Matt Golden a lot. I think he's my wide receiver 7.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that the Cowboys. I think the uniqueness about the Cowboys is that Jerry is like 80 years old, so he has to win basically now. And if he doesn't, he's just not gonna like that. So I'm thinking that as much as McMillan would help, I feel like having zero run game because Rico Dowdle's a Panther, Zeke is 60, and they just don't have any backs. I feel like Hampton's got to be the pick there for them.
Yeah, I think that could happen. I mean, I like our Marion Hampton. I'm not as high as maybe like most draft analysts. He's actually my 3rd running back. I have Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State as my number 2. I think Judkins has got everything you want, the complete package as a pro runner. But I do like Hampton. And I'm a Dolphins fan, full disclosure. So we're picking at 13. So I want every quarterback and every running back in the draft to go before us, so that maybe a Mason Graham can fall into our lap. So it's one of those things for me that go. I want Hampton to go to the Bears. Hell, let Henderson from Ohio State go to the Cowboys. Let all the running backs go.
My most recent mock had the Dolphins with Will Johnson because Ramsey just left.
Yeah, look, I think it's one of the 3 missing guys for them. It's going to be him, Graham, or Kenny Grant. I do think if there's any team that has the pulse on Will Johnson's medicals, it's going to be Miami. His agent's Drew Rosenhaus. Drew Rosenhaus lives in Miami. He has a ton of players on the Dolphins. He does a ton of work with the Dolphins. He has a weekly radio show on Miami news. So like he is a guy that, is very connected with them. Um, the Dolphins, Chris Greer's MO as a GM would be that he would take a corner definitely over a defensive tackle. For me, it's those three Michigan guys, and then the name that I've heard consistently since the scouting combine, and not just for the Dolphins. I've heard him connected to the Jets. I've heard him connected to the Raiders. Is Jedi Barron. I think he is the guy that the NFL loves more than anyone. And I said this I think in your speech a couple weeks ago. I had an old colleague that I used to work for at Pro Football Network who told me that the one thing that he consistently was hearing in Indianapolis was that the NFL loves Jedi Barron, and I think he's one of those student of the game type players. I hate to use that cliche, but he's a very heady, smart football player, high football intelligence, very versatile, Swiss Army knife, can play in the slot, can play on the boundary, can even play center field safety for you. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to like that versatility. I think he's 5'11", 191, if I'm remembering correctly. Just I heard you just mention you watched Texas. I watched a lot of John I. Barron, and he is in a passing NFL. The versatility that you can get and line a guy up all over the field allows him to see the field quickly. So I like, for me, I would think the Dolphins are on the Kenny Grant, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and Jedi Barron train. I think one of those four guys. They don't pick offensive line in the first round. It's not really their MO. Maybe that changes if a guy like Membu really does fall down the draft board a little bit, but I'm pretty certain that they're going to add a piece on the defensive side of the ball.
Neil, real quick, who do you think is the Cleveland? What's his name? Cleveland Farrell. Who's the Cleveland Farrell? Like, who goes into the top 10 that nobody is even dreaming of?
Well, the name that I would throw there, who I think is the Cleveland Pharaohs, Michael Williams from Georgia. He's the guy that's the number one player I don't want for the Dolphins at 13, and I'm a little nervous because I had someone who works for the University of Georgia told me that no team spent more time in Athens than the Miami Dolphins. So I'm like, good Lord, please. And it's not like he has athletic traits that you dream of having and you hope that you can mold. I just think that, sometimes these developmental guys aren't top 10 picks, right? And it takes them a little time to get out of the gates. And, it just depends on where you are in your franchise and what do you want, right? Like, because I hear a lot of people come up on all spaces and talk about draft picks. And it's like, I want this guy because we need a weapon, whatever. It's just, like, a lot of it depends on where you are in your franchise's kind of trajectory. Are you a contender, right? Are you a team that's kind of going through a rebuild? Are you resetting, kind of like where that is and what it matters? And then I always ask, what do you want? Do you want instant gratification? We live in this Amazon world. You need toothpaste in an hour, you can have it at your doorstep. Or are you a team like Baltimore that has no problem drafting a player because he's the best player on their board, stashing them and developing them, and then maybe year two is when you thrust them into a full-time role? There's just a lot of different variables here. I think as fans, we always look for that instant gratification, but like, I don't view the draft as being the ability just to plug holes and fill gaps on your roster. I think it's developing for the future. So like a lot of times, I think you need to have more than a 1 year vision when you make a draft pick. It's like, where do you see this guy year one? Where do you see him year two? It's that old, if you're in sales, 30, 60, 90 plan. And, like, I think we've seen it work. Kyle Hamilton is a guy that I love to use as an example, right? The Ravens had just made Marcus Williams the highest paid safety in football. They get on the draft board at 13. Kyle Hamilton, I think, was the second rated player on my board that year. They get him and they, very anti-Raven. They kind of throw him on the back end of their safety and make him just do nothing but coverage. And if you watch that game when the Dolphins threw for 469 yards and 6 touchdowns, Kyle Hamilton was responsible for 2 of those deep balls, just not knowing his assignment, right? Year
Yep.
two, they thrust him in a role where he's playing more around the line of scrimmage. He's utilizing his strengths, and here he is now. Probably, if he's not the best safety in football, he's definitely in the top 3, right? So it's like, it just depends on what your franchise does with players. But I get, like, PD, I get the love for the tight end position for the Jets. I just caution people that tight end is one of the hardest transitions to make from college to the NFL. Production's usually a little slow out of the gates. Like, I know we saw Brock Bowers come in the league and have a humongous year and was the most productive tight end in football. I think Brock Bowers was a gold jacket good player, which I've only probably had rated 8 of them in the 20 years that I've followed the NFL draft. So I don't think it's fair to have that expectations for a guy, any other tight end. But I do think that you guys have a pitiful tight end room right now. And
Yep.
Jeremy Ruckett,
And
what you've seen out of him is what you're going to get, right? Like I don't see him tomorrow becoming Rob Gronkowski, right? So I get it. And look, I think that the one thing you're going to get with Tyler Warren is this guy loves football. He is a lunch pail type of player that works hard. Um, I like one thing that I am a little concerned of, and a lot of people aren't, is like his ability to consistently separate at the next level. I think he has good hands. He can score in the red zone. Um, with NFL sticky coverage, I want to see him be able to break, defenders off of him quickly. And
but Neil,
like I
real
think he
quick,
could.
sorry, didn't Laporta though? People were questioning his, breakaway speed, and like weren't people
Yeah,
questioning him? And look at him. I'm just saying, like, I'm not knocking your.
but you got
Go ahead.
No, but he was the 48th pick, right? We're talking about the 7th pick. And Laporta,
Correct.
again, he's an instant out. I think him and Bowers are these recency bias type of guys. But you guys know more than anything, right? Think about guys like Kyle Brady. Think about guys like Jeremy Shockey, who was good at lightning in a bottle initially, but really faded in the back half of his career, right? Like I heard T.J. Hawkinson mention. I mean, Hawkinson had a really good year and got a big contract, but his own team, the Lions, traded him to a division rival, the Vikings. Like if a player is so good, you're not trading him to your division rival, right? Like, so I just think that like the numbers show, if you look at it historically, it's a high probability that you'll get a pedestrian type player at tight end. Now, like my NFL comp for Tyler Warren is I think he could be Dallas Goedert. That's where I think he can be. If that's a type of player that you view as a top 10 pick, like sure, like go ahead and after it. And I like to utilize comps because I think it kind of puts things in perspective for people that don't sit there and crush a lot of tape. But I think Warren's a highly productive player. Like shit. Like I said this yesterday. I'm married to a Penn State alum. We don't miss Penn State football. He was awesome last year. He was kind of quiet his other years. On at Happy Valley, and he was behind Theo Johnson, who was a guy the Giants had drafted last year, I think in the 4th round. But I do think that he makes a lot of sense, and I think the good news is he's a guy that's not going to have to sit there and wait to find the field. He's going to find the field instantly. I think the day you draft him, he's the best tight end on your roster, right? I don't even think it's
Without a
close.
doubt.
So like, and who's the guy they signed the other guy, Stone or
Stone
whatever? Like,
Smart. Stone Smart. Yeah, he's a second tight end.
yeah, I mean, he might not even make your roster, right? So I could even say this: it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets took a tight end in the 1st round and still found time later in the draft to take another guy, a guy that might do, like we talk about Warren is more, he could play inline as much as he could play in the slot. Maybe you get like a more athletic pass catching type of tight end later to pair with him, like an Aronde Gadsden the second from Syracuse, somebody like that. It's kind of a yin and a yang to what Tyler Warren is. But look, I like Warren. I think he's the 15th player on my board. I have a borderline round 1 grade on him, so it's like I like Tyler Warren. I think the Jets at 7 are in kind of an interesting predicament, especially if Genti goes to 5 and Membu goes at 6. Because I've been bound on the table. I think Membu, uh, Fashanu and Membu is your bookend offensive tackles. To me, in 3 years, we're looking back and being like, holy shit, the Jets
So,
have the best line
Neil,
in
do you
football.
think though the Raiders are going to take him at 6 if Genty and them are if Genty's gone? Are the
Yeah,
Raiders taking him?
I think they would definitely take him. Their starting right tackle, I think last year was a guy that actually played where I went to school at Maryland. His name's Delmar Glaze. He goes by DJ Glaze in the NFL. Not a bad football player, man, but like he's a rotational depth guy to me. If he's your starting right tackle, you just made a trade and invested in Geno Smith. And look, I think Geno is a really good player for what he's become, but I still think he's a middle of the pack guy. Like I think you're going to need to protect him in that division. And they have their right side of their offensive line is awful for the Raiders. So I do think that if Genti goes 5 to Jacksonville, that Membu's heavily in play for the Raiders at 6, and the other guy I think
Yep.
would be Jedi Barron.
Yeah, guys, just jump
Hey,
in,
Neil.
Nick.
Neil.
All right.
Dude, Neil, do me a favor. Comment on the aspects of Warren's game that are not tight end related. Because I know that you watch a lot of Penn State football. And do you think that any of that can translate to Sunday?
When you say not football related, give me an example.
Not they are football related, not tight end related.
Oh,
Like playing quarterback, playing a little bit of like getting the
okay, yeah,
wildcat,
like his
like fourth.
versatility.
Like can Warren push in the NFL? Can we put him at quarterback on 4th and 1 and get a yard? Can we
Yeah,
on
yeah,
second and
I got you.
4? Can we run quarterback power?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think I've seen Mark Andrews do that in Baltimore, where he lines up, takes a snap, and moves. Look, he's a versatile guy. Like he was a Swiss Army knife for Penn State, and look, he was the heartbeat of that team. So like, and to me, the Penn State should have been hoisting a national championship trophy if their offense didn't get in their own way against Notre Dame. So I think that he brings a lot to the table in terms of his versatility. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's kind of lining up in the Wildcat and taking snaps and running the football at the next level. I just think the athletic, difference between college football and the pros is pretty mighty, right? So, but I do think that he's a guy in short yardage situations. You get creative and you use him. And look, we can't be naive to the fact the quarterback is Justin Fields. Justin Fields, is a average at best, probably below average NFL passing quarterback down the field, right? So one of the good things you can do to help a quarterback that struggles consistently with passing the ball downfield accurately is getting them that security blanket, that old cliche that we've heard for all these years. I think Tyler Warren does a really good of operating, in the intermediate field, right? Like he's a guy that in 10, 12 yards can get open, he can catch the ball, and he's not easy to bring down on initial contact. So like I think that when you look at the quarterback and the situation for the Jets, and the Jets I think are going to be a heavy run football team with Justin Fields at the helm. Like I do think there's an attractiveness to Warren's game where he, as an inline blocker, is an above average blocker, and he can do a lot of that dirty work too. So I do see I see the vision for Tyler Warren and the Jets, and I don't want to come off as I don't think he's a good pick. I just think when you're drafting in the top 10, like for me, my like I asked earlier, it's like what do you want? For me in the top 10, I want instant impact player that has Pro Bowl potential. And, I don't know if I see that with Warren out of the gates just because of the position he plays. But and honestly, the quarterback he plays with, I think, could hamper him a little bit. But with all that said, like the Jets, and PD has said this for weeks, like the Jets need to do something to add some weapons to this team.
Yep.
Garrett Wilson can't shoulder the weight of all that alone. Like they need more out there. And, it does seem like Brees Hall could potentially be the odd man out there with all these contracts and money getting thrown around. So, I think Alan Lazard is a short-term answer out there. He took less money to stay. I don't think he's going to be there for the long haul.
Josh Reynolds
Other than
isn't.
that, I mean, the wide receiver.
He's not good in the
Yeah,
first place.
Yeah, and here's
yeah,
the
no,
thing.
I
Like
agree. I
this
agree with that.
Corley, my thing is, what are they going to do with Corley? He's right now technically,
I wouldn't give
yeah,
up on Corley yet.
right, but he's technically now the fourth wide receiver. Let's see what I want to see what Glenn and them do with these,
Yeah,
mid-range
he
guys.
might play well in the
Yeah, I
spring.
want to see what Glenn and them do with these mid-range guys, like guys that are off the radar that like Detroit developed, because Detroit did
Yeah, because
develop,
Yeah,
PD,
players. They did.
he's wide receiver 4 with Sala and Ulbrich. He might be wide receiver 2 with
I
Glenn
don't know
and
about
real
that yet. I think
coaches.
he's more of a slot guy, Nick, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean,
but I would.
yeah, but still, if he can play, let's say 60% of the snaps with a new coaching staff, I'd sign up for that tomorrow.
Yeah, but he's got to produce. Go ahead. Keep Tom,
Yeah,
jump in
that's
when you
true.
can too. Don't be shy.
No, no, I was wondering. Actually, a question popped in for Neil if he's willing to answer, because I know historically a lot of drafts this decade in the past, a team that has had an early first round pick or mid has also traded back in to the end of the first round. What player would you project, if anything, or team to possibly do that this year if it is going to happen? Since I know you got your ear
Jackson
to that.
Dart.
Giants Jackson Dart, I think is going to happen. I think that they want a quarterback, and they're going to do everything they can. And I also think that keep an eye on Jalen Milroe with the Saints and Browns. I think he's a guy who's picking up a lot of steam headed into the draft. But I think in that back half, like, I'll be blunt. I'm dropping my final mock draft tonight, the one that I send to get graded. I laughed about this. You spend a lot of hours putting all this stuff together. The highest I've ever done was back in 2012. I got 7 out of 32 right, which is pretty damn good. But like, most nights I 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, once one thing goes awry, your whole board can change. But I do think that it's going to go Cam Ward 1. I don't have another quarterback getting off the board till 21, and that's Shador Sanders going to the Steelers. I think Sanders is going to fall that far down on draft night. But then I do think that
Wow.
the
Okay.
Giants, the Browns, the Saints, and the Raiders are teams that are going to be moving up to try to get a quarterback. And I think the odd man out in that scenario is likely to take a guy like Tyler Shook out of Louisville in the top of round 2. I think there's such an issue with the supply and demand. And usually it's like, hey, we can keep our eyes on next year's draft class is 2026. But I think a lot of these teams, when you think about it, like Brian Dable's probably coaching for his job, right? Kevin Stefanski, despite being a great head coach in Cleveland, gets Deshaun Watson forced on him. He might be coaching for his job. Pete Carroll's 73 years old. He's not getting any younger. He doesn't have a lot of time to wait for a quarterback. A whole year to him is a long time when you're in that year of your coaching cycle. So I think there's going to be a rush on quarterbacks. And then the other names that I think could be happening is I think that somebody's going to move up for Josh Connerly or Josh Simmons, whatever offensive tackle it's falling at the end of the round 1. There's just not a lot of good offensive linemen in the league anymore, right? Like, it's definitely been a position that has underwhelmed the last few years in the league. And I think a lot of these teams are desperate to go find those versatile offensive tackles that, they can play and that protect your quarterback's blind side. So, but I do think Jackson Dart and the Giants, there's a lot of harmony there. And I think that, they'll probably trade future picks to do it. I hear, Giants, Jets, the rivalry, New York, New Jersey. Uh, I'm not sure there's a team that's been run worse in the last 5 years of football than the New York Giants. I know they've had. I'm a Dolphins fan. We haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. They have 2 Super Bowls during that time period. But man, the way they butchered the Saquon Barkley situation, drafting guys like Evan Neal in the top 10, I like Daniel Jones in that contract. The list goes on and on. I mean, the Giants have fumbled it pretty
Neil, they
heavily.
have 2 guys that they drafted 5 and 7 that they're probably not giving 50. Well, I still think Thibodeau will be on the team next year, but you could make an argument that the top, 5 and 7 pick in the draft didn't get 50-year options,
Well,
which
Petey,
is
that's where I'll
bad.
differ with you.
But
I think Thibodeau is going to be the ammo they use to move back up in round 1.
what? So you think they might trade him?
Yeah, I think that if they
Well, if
get
they
Aldo
get, you're
Carter at
right. If they
3,
get Carter, I agree with that.
I'd keep an eye on a team like Minnesota at 24 or the Rams at 26 that don't have a lot of draft capital in this draft, that have traded future picks away. If Dart is on the board during those spots, I could totally see, maybe a Thibodeau, their first round or their second round pick and a future third round pick to move up to go get a quarterback.
Hey Neil, do the Giants have 33 or 34?
34. 33 is the Cleveland
Okay.
Browns.
So you don't think that 34 is enough to get Dart?
You can sit there and wait, but in the history of watching the draft, the one thing I see is good things don't happen to those that wait. If you have conviction about a player, go get your guy. I always tell this story because in the 2020 draft, the Dolphins had the 18th pick and they wanted Tristan Wirfs, and they were on the phone with San Francisco, who drafted Javon Kinlaw with pick 11. The next pick was Tristan Wirfs. We had the ability to move up to pick 11 and trade a 4th rounder in that draft and a 4th rounder in the following draft, and we would have Tristan Wirfs instead of Austin Jackson, and our GM said no, and we ended up with Austin Jackson, who's an average NFL right tackle, but Wirfs is probably the second best behind Penei Sewell. So, if you have convictions about a player, go get them. Don't wait. And the likelihood with all those teams needing quarterbacks at the top of round 2, I do think that there'd be somebody that would move ahead of them for Dart. So I feel like go get your guy. Um, Brian Dable to me is actually not a horrible head coach. I feel like he's just been dealt a um, pretty bad hand in New York. But They need to get a quarterback there. What we saw out of Russell Wilson is a shell of the player he used to be. Jameis Winston is an adequate backup at best, right? Like, what's his name? Tommy Cutlets. I don't think he even makes the roster next year. They need to get a young guy that Dable can mold there. Like Dable was a key contributor in Josh Allen's development. Go get him a guy that he can mold. Not he inherited a Daniel Jones. Like go get him his
So
own
now
guy.
tell me about Milrow.
All right. Well, he's my quarterback too.
Oh, that's right. I
Um,
love that. Yes.
yeah, I love Milrow because here's my thing is I want every quarterback that I draft to lead my franchise to have a superpower, something that they do better than everyone else. And I think as soon as he's drafted, he's in the same mold just as a runner as Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. Like I think he's that gifted of a talented runner. Now he is a project as a passer. He needs a lot of work, a lot of the same. We remember when Bill Polian was on there saying Lamar Jackson was going to be a receiver at the next level because he couldn't throw. Good coaching can develop quarterbacks. Now, I don't. I like for me the ideal spot for him is actually Cleveland because I think Kevin Stefanski is a brilliant coach, and he's a guy. I'll be honest. If he got fired after this year, I'd as a Dolphins fan, I'd want him over
Yeah,
Mike McDaniel
I
tomorrow.
could see him going there
Yeah,
too, Neil.
right. So like I just think that Milrow, like the game that I liked the most when I watched Milrow was against University of Georgia last year. He put that under that, and I know they had Ryan Williams as a receiver, but that Alabama team last year was a shell of the teams that we saw with Tua, Waddle, Devontae Smith, all everything we saw for the last decade, right? Like that team was a shell of itself. He put that team on his back, beat Georgia, a Georgia defense loaded with Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks, Nazir Stackhouse. The names go on and on. Michael Williams. And man, his ability to run and like he's going to make his mistakes. He's going to throw picks. But man, his superpower is his legs. And he could be the biggest bust in this draft. But I like quarterbacks that have something they do better than everyone else. And I do think Milrow is a guy that in round two, I'd even be okay taking a flyer on, knowing that it's a coin flip whether he pans out. It also depends on who's coaching your offense, but in the right offense, if they can simplify the passing game for him, he'll extend a lot of drives with those legs.
I got one more question. This is more for the collective group because it's not really a draft question. We are all fairly confident the Steelers are going quarterback, right? What does that say about Rodgers? Because I have my own theory about Rodgers, but I want to hear specifically Steelers Rodgers.
Rodgers isn't worth the headache for anybody anymore. That's my opinion. And the Steelers are a good organization. They're desperate for the quarterback position. There's no doubt. And Aaron Rodgers at this age, what's he, the 23rd maybe best quarterback in football at this point of his career? With a Mike Tomlin at the helm, man, I just see that as oil and vinegar. I don't see that as something that's going to work well. Well, that's probably a bad example, but I don't see that being a good match for them. Like they need to get a young guy they can develop it, and that's something that someone in Pittsburgh had told me was that like that was one of Mike Tomlin's gripes is the inability for the team to go and find a young quarterback in the draft. And right now, you look at them, they're a playoff team, right? But their starting quarterback, if week one was tomorrow, is Mason Rudolph, and I'm not here to knock Mason Rudolph. He's made a good career as as a backup quarterback in this league, but man, I will tell you, I don't know. I don't want him to be my starter.
Petey, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know if they're going to take a quarterback. But I wouldn't be mad if they took Milrow if he was there down the road,
Yeah.
or take a flyer on someone else. I wouldn't. But
I think it'll be Shadur personally, but then I think that Rodgers, because he was so pissed off about Jordan Love, and I mean he was still an MVP when that happened, so like I get it, but I feel like if you take Shadur, you're basically telling Rodgers like, hey, you're not coming here because Rodgers won't do it.
yeah, but I don't honestly, man. At this point, I don't even care about Rodgers in Pittsburgh.
No, I
Nick,
agree
to
with
be
you.
fair, like
My
I can't
yeah,
believe the dudes didn't sign yet. But it
my
doesn't
my
surprise me
personal
anymore.
my personal Rodgers belief on what he's doing right now is he's waiting for one of two things to happen. He's waiting for the Brock Purdy elbow injury or the Brock Purdy contract to not go through, or he's waiting for the JJ McCarthy knee to not be as good as they think it is, or JJ McCarthy to not be as good of a player as I think he is. And then in like July or August, he'll go to one of those two teams.
Hey, Petey, I just wanted to give a shout out. I see Antoine in here, man, and Antoine covered the Dolphins before he covered the Jets, and you know,
Yeah, he's
and joining
coming
these
up soon.
spaces, yeah,
Yep.
and joining these spaces, and listen, his Jets coverage is top notch, and we definitely miss him in Miami, man. I always loved Antoine's content and perspective, man. So I just want to give him a shout out. I think he does such a good job, man. It's always good to hear him.
Amen to that. He's scheduled to come up. So Antoine, I sent you a mic. There he is. Did you hear that compliment from Neil, Antoine?
Yeah, I love Neil. Like, good to hear from you, Neil. Like, how you doing? And
Doing
thank you.
doing good, man. And I know that we connected originally on our love and on wings, man. And I got the bad news that for the draft, my favorite wing place in my area, man, they shut doors after 30 years over here by where I live. So my draft plans have changed. I got to go find a new wing spot.
Man, you still in the Maryland area, right?
Yeah, I live in Baltimore County. I live like 4 miles from the Ravens complex.
That's what I thought. Like, okay, yeah, I'll probably be down there watch a few baseball games this year. So yeah, I have to hit you up
Yeah, let
so
me
you can
know.
come down and watch the Orioles.
Yeah, let me know. My company's got season tickets, and I can get us the kind of the all-in food inclusive thing. So let me know.
Oh, okay. Oh, I definitely calling you.
Yeah, let me know, brother.
Yeah. All right, I'll definitely see you. Yeah, we'll definitely talk offline for sure.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you
Come on.
soon.
All
Hey,
right.
Antoine, good morning. Thanks for
All right.
joining,
What's
man.
up? What's going on? How y'all
Uh,
doing?
good, good. As we
Yo,
approached, I approached it as we approached the draft, but I do have a question. Is Muji uh, sort of like is he an Aaron Glenn to the media, or what's your stance on him? And I know he wasn't annoyed with the Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he was, but what's your stance on Muji? Is he taking that, tough guy approach to the media?
Oh, no, y'all thought that was tough guy? No, he just
No,
doesn't. No, he
I
just doesn't. He doesn't go into a lot of detail. I mean, that's totally fine. Like some GMs and coaches like to keep things close to the vets. Some do not. Some a little bit more open. And it seems like Muji, he's not going to say anything crazy in the media. So if you ask him a question, it's usually probably one or two sentences. He's not going to give you a lot, and it is what it is. So we just kind of have to make do with that. I will say this, like at least he's a general manager that goes out and like at least so far is going out and actively talk to the media. Some general managers, like they've been in hiding up until recently. I won't say any names, but until recently, when and they just had a press conference and kind of a bit of a nightmare press conference, but still, like at least he's going out, being active and talking to the media. So I do respect that.
Yeah, Antoine, this was a scheduled thing because I was when you tweeted that picture, I was like, whoa, I didn't expect the Jets to do something, on Monday, but this is just a normal thing now. Will this be a normal thing with Muji, or is it because
No,
of
no,
the
no, no,
draft?
no. It's just pre-draft press conference. Every team has one, so
Okay.
they were just having theirs. They just had theirs a little bit later than some of the other teams.
All right. What do you think Jets and Glenn are thinking here? Do you think the pick's Warren, or if the offensive tackles it?
It,
Antoine, real quick, I think if Membu or Campbell's there and Warren are there, I think they're taking the offensive lineman. But if not, I think Warren's the pick.
yeah, I mean, it's a good debate. Like for me, like I think you should talk about. I think they should fortify the offensive line. Like, it's been a sore spot for years with the Jets, and to be able to fortify those tackles and you got Fashion New last year from Penn State. Now you're able to get another quality guy that could be, potential Pro Bowl talent and Mimbu there. I don't know. I don't think Campbell's going to be there, but if he was, then that would be another interesting discussion too. And I think, you could take a tight end later on. This is a great tight end class. I mean,
That's a
you,
fact.
yeah, you could talk about, what Mason Taylor, who I crazy enough saw in high school when I was still covering the Dolphins, or you could talk about, Fannin from Bowling Green. I think those are two really good options there. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. end. So you have options at tight end later on. I don't think you have as good of options at tackle if you wait to 42 there. You potentially, miss out on a lot of guys there. I think if you end up taking Tyler Warren, you're probably going to have to end up trying to either trade back into the first round or, trade up early on round two to make sure you get one of those tackles there. That way you can, have a solid starter there. I like Simmons from Ohio State. I think he would have been there, with Mimbu and Campbell there had he not gotten hurt. So it depends on what you think about him, and possibly he's probably going to be a first round pick too. It's just a matter of where that is late in the first round. But yeah, I think the tackle class is a lot less talented than it was a year ago.
Antoine, it's crazy. I grew up watching Ray Mickens and Jason Taylor, and now both of their sons are going to be drafted in the draft. I'm getting old, man. This
Yeah,
is
I mean,
crazy.
yeah, welcome to old age.
Antoine, real quick, is BJ Armstrong the draft guy? I forget what college he went to. Is he related to the Bulls BJ Armstrong?
I have to look into that. I don't think so, but possibly, possibly, but I don't think so.
Okay. Showtime. I know you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Antoine, who do you think
What's
could get
what's good,
drafted?
buddy?
What's up? How you been?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man,
What's your
good.
question?
I wanted to ask you, who could get drafted in the top 10 that will just throw off the first round completely, like just on some chaos?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I think it has to be Dart. Either Dart or I would say Stewart from Texas A&M. Although I think there's been some talk about him going early. I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking a guy like that only had 4.5 sacks in college in the top 10. But that's just me. Like, because
Yeah,
yeah, talent's there, but it's about production on the field too, and you got to be able to produce there, especially if you're taking a guy that early in the
yeah.
draft. But it will
I,
probably
I
be
got I
both of
got a
those guys.
weird feeling about Jackson Dart, man. He gonna throw this whole draft off.
I agree. I think it's going to be very similar to. He's going to be taken higher than I think a lot of people think.
Does
Like
anybody
when it
know his
could,
agency? Is he with Athletes First? Because man, they doing a good job.
I have to look into it, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he went nine to the Saints. Like to be honest with you.
Yeah, when I saw him with K Adams, I'm like, all right, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely. I think he could go higher, even though and then higher than Shador, which I think would also, raise a few eyebrows, especially after last night's NFL Network, NFL.com article. If you hadn't seen it, where anonymous scouts and coaches, rate certain players, and they had a lot of damning things to say about Shador Sanders. Some of them I'd heard from other people. Some of them I'm like, yeah, that's,
I
seem like
think long
it's a
term
little bit
wise,
lower.
I think it's better for him to fall because there's a chance he could be with a Sean McVay or somebody like that that can
Hmm.
properly mold him. I think this is the best thing that could happen to him, and I bet you his father's telling him, "Listen, it's okay. Don't even argue," because his father's not even saying anything. And to
Nah, he
me,
shouldn't.
that's like okay. I think this is purposeful. I don't think he wants anybody shitting on his son, but there has to be some type of method to him wanting to even fall down to begin with. I doubt he wants to go to the Giants.
Yeah, and also I'll say this too: like the farther you fall, like you're going to good teams and good or better organizations. So I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing, especially for a guy that's, I mean, Shador kind of. I mean, I think he has average arm strength there. He is tough in the pocket there, real doable there. But some of his qualities, like other quarterbacks have, more exciting qualities. But I think Shador could be a solid, quarterback option there. You don't necessarily need the biggest arm in the NFL to succeed. I think we've seen it with a lot of other guys in this
Zach
league.
Wilson. I mean, no
Is
shot to the Jets, but like we've seen
oh
guys with
that
strong arms. If you can't
yeah,
read a defense and process,
correct.
it doesn't matter. And in NFL standards, a deep pass is anything over 20 yards. So like I don't get it.
Correct. And it's also depending on where the offense and how that's built too. So if you go somewhere with
Yeah,
like a West Coast offense that can just dump the ball out pretty quickly, that's all you really need. You just need a point guard, especially if a guy like him, I think he's intelligent enough where he knows where the ball needs to be there. It does hold him to the ball a little bit too long, but you can work on that with coaching.
yeah, for sure. And most of the league is playing too high, anyway. So it's not
Yeah.
that many deep passes like people like to make it seem. Just because they see Josh Allen scrambling for like 5 minutes, then he throws the ball.
Yeah,
Like,
my only worry with Shador is like, yeah, he's not like super athletic, So, and he, as far as some of the off-platform plays that, he's not going to give you that. So he's definitely going to have to get the ball out, dump it out pretty quickly, or otherwise, like you got these fast defensive linemen on the other side, they're going to just, eat him alive. So yeah, he's definitely going to have to, get that ball out pretty quickly, especially in the league.
Oh, I was on mute. Antoine, have you spoken to Fields at all since he's been here?
Yeah, he had the Zoom press conference couple of weeks ago, I
Yeah,
believe. So yeah, we talked to him.
cool. What's your thoughts on him? You think he can handle it here with the media? Uh, you
I
don't.
think he's fine. I think he's fine. Like he was in Chicago, so they have very similar type of media there. It's probably more Bears media than it is Jets media, so I think he'll be fine. I don't think it'll be a big deal at all.
Cool.
Yeah, he's not a rookie anymore, man. He probably
Yeah.
has like a baby mom
Well,
already.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
he's 26, so yeah, he'll be fine. Yeah, he's good.
I don't know. There's nobody's hands up. Is somebody's hands up? Because something's wrong with my
You don't
phone.
Yo,
see Tom's hand?
No, I don't.
yeah,
I'm
Tom was first and then
Tom.
me.
Go ahead. Good morning.
Giambi. Well, hey, Antoine, thank you as always for joining us on the space. I love talking with you and the other beat reporters when possible.
Hey
It's always a
Tom, how
pleasure.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well, just having to work, truly being commuting on Jets Commute here. So, question, it's a two-part question in a way, because I know you probably are pre-planning maybe articles depending on what the Jets do. So what would be the article that be get the highest praise for this regime on night one? If move wise they did in their picks, and what would be the one that would be slamming criticism that you can see happening, like best case and worst case.
Yeah, you're telling people my secret, like as far as like pre-planned articles. Like
Now I
I can't have you do that. No, I'm just
I
messing with
you know what,
you.
inside thing, Yankees PR. I think the second third in command there is a family friend of mine, so she tells me she knows some of them revealed that to her. So
Yeah,
that's why
yeah,
from other beat reporters.
but
So
yeah,
that's how I know that.
yeah, I definitely am doing that too. But like you asked, like who would be surprised if they got picked that early?
Yes,
Uh, I probably had to go with somebody like it's been a lot of talk about Mikael Williams from Georgia. Although I do like the player, but that early, like I don't know, man. Like I definitely would be surprised if the Jets went in that direction there. I do think they do need to address edge rusher there, and yeah, of course you do have Will McDonald and Jermaine, but obviously Jermaine's coming off an Achilles injury, and it's not that I don't think he'll be back. Like I think he will be, but it could be a little bit slower than I think some people may expect. And it's never a bad thing to have too many pass rushers. But I think you can get that
right.
possibly day two, get some help there. It's a great defensive line class this year, a lot of talent there. They be able to start in this league for a little bit long time there. So yeah, I would be surprised if Mikael Williams was the pick at number 7 for the Jets.
Okay, that answers and satisfies that question without giving away too much of your secrets there, basically. Like I said, it's just a little insider thing because it's like I said, very good family friend with the Yankees because I know different sport, but I kind of figure if it works that way in baseball, you probably have similar MO just because
Correct.
it helps at least pre-plan and all that, you know? So,
Well, yeah, yeah, definitely, especially when it happens so fast too. So you got to definitely, even though I know a lot of these prospects, but some people do not. So it's better to have some stuff in advance too. That way you can just kind of put it out there when the pick is made.
exactly. All right. All right, because I'm sure, no, there was another hand that was at least waiting, so I'll let them go because I don't have
Yeah,
a follow-up to that.
hey,
All right, thanks,
thanks,
Tom.
Tom. Hey, Antoine, I got a question for you, sir.
Ye-
On a scale of like 1 to 10, right? One means like absolutely not. The Jets are drafting a quarterback rounds 1 through 7. Like absolutely not happening. 10, they're definitely doing it. What do you think?
If I had to 1 through 10, I probably would say 6. I would say. I think they should at some point, but it just should be on day 3 because I don't think there's nothing wrong with taking a developmental guy in round 4 or 5, so 6 if that's what they wanted to do there. You don't need to camp. First of all, you need to camp arm anyway, so And then I don't know necessarily the full status of Jordan Travis, although it is expected like he will be, he's gonna recover, well. Like we don't know if he's gonna perform in, OTAs and mini camp, and I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world to have a quarterback there in place there. But yeah, we're talking late round quarterbacks. That you're talking guys like Dylan Gabriel, you're talking guys like Cal McCord there, who I do like. Riley Leonard, I also think that's a possibility too as well. So yeah, I think those are probably the guys you're looking at day three of the draft too, and they're not going to threaten Justin Fields there, but they're a good developmental guy that potentially might be a good backup quarterback, or by God, maybe a starter later on, if you develop them the right way. So yeah, I will live by the Ron Wolf philosophy, where even if you have a quarterback, you still take one at some point in the draft, or a couple of few drafts, just so you can keep a guy develop. And if you trade him off, then that's fine, kind of like what the Patriots did with Joe Milton. But if you end up keeping him and it turns out to be your starter, that's great too.
Antoine,
I
no
like
great.
it.
Wait,
Thank you.
there's no great Adrian Martinez camp arm. I'm just playing. Where's he? Is he on the roster?
hmm He's
That's
still on the
nasty,
roster,
Pete.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah, he's
just
still on.
well,
He's still on the roster.
Joe
But put
Douglas.
some respect on Adrian Martinez, man. Like he had him down for the Jets fans in the preseason last year.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just mentioning names, but you're right. I
I'm,
think they
I'm,
will get a camp arm for
I'm,
sure.
I'm just I'm just fucking with you anyway.
Wow, that threw me off here. Giambi, go ahead, man.
Good morning, gents. Antoine, what do you know? What do you say? I think the Jets, in all reality, I mean, when you look at how bad the offense has been for so many years, I think Membu, Campbell, and Warren in that order should probably be the top three priorities. So I just wanted to hear if there's steam behind that. And then secondly, listen, I like Warren, but at the same time, it's also with the understanding and belief that Mason Graham is gone. I know a lot of Jet fans roll their eyes at him, but I think he's a super talented player and arguably behind the quarterback position. I think defensive tackle was absolutely horrible last year. I think
Yeah.
having him and Quentin Williams playing side by side with each other would be tremendous for this team, and it would allow the pass rushers to operate more freely and stuff. Do you think that's a possibility as well, Mason Graham at 7? Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. I think if he's there, I just have a hard time believing Jacksonville is going to let him slide. Although you don't know what to believe now. Like we're days in the draft. Like it's a lot of lying going on. It is lying season, so some of these teams are just feeding information to certain vessels, and then they're putting it out there just so it kind of throws people off, because you get stuff in the media, and it's kind of like with the Raiders. Like a lot of people expect them to take Jitty from Boise State, but it's been some talk that Mimbu may go to the Raiders there. Although I would have a hard time, especially if they're going to move him to left tackle potentially. Like, so I don't, he doesn't have that experience at left tackle like he does right tackle. So I'd be curious to know the thinking is there. But yeah, I definitely think I agree with your assessment about the Jets defensive tackle opposite Quentin Williams. I thought it was just really atrocious last year. I thought Kinlaw was really too big, and was undisciplined at times, and just really had a hard time moving there. He's in Washington now. We'll see how he does there. They gave him a bunch of money, which I was definitely surprised about that. But if you're talking, if it isn't Mason Graham in round one, then I think you're talking about guys like, TJ Sanders from South Carolina. You're talking about, Deion Walker from Kentucky, too, as well, maybe in round two. So yeah, those are gonna be some names to
I,
look
I
out for
just
too.
think I just think the reason why and I get it, right, because think about all those years we drafted the Leonard Williamses of the world, or the
Hmm.
Quinton Williams of the world, or Sheldon Richardson. That's a name from the past. I'm getting
Yeah.
old, God. And they didn't. We had these dominant defensive lines that didn't necessarily translate into wins. I get it, but my expectations for this team next year is so low that I just think we need to get players in the building. And to me, Mason Graham, you can make an argument, is like the third or fourth best player overall
Yes.
in this draft.
Yeah, I think he's top five. I really do. So
So
I think takes the best available player at maybe the position of need, and just kind of roll from there too. But yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of smoke where you talk about Membu, Campbell, and Warren too as well. I again, like a lot of people, there is another tight end option too in this class too as well. Not enough people I think are
Loveland.
talking. Yeah, Colston Loveland, who I think is some people's tight end one, in this class. Like I have Warren slightly over him, but I think Loveland is a really natural pass catcher, and he's actually bigger than Tyler Warren, believe it or not, too. I think he probably would have had similar type stats if he had better quarterback play at Michigan last year, because they certainly did not have that. They relied a lot on the running game there and their defense. But yeah, I think Loveland is equally as good as what Warren could be, and definitely different players. But I think I'm definitely a big fan of Coaston Loveland.
Thank you, Antoine. All you need is love.
Yeah, yeah, well said.
Yeah, I think the next person is Kenny, but Antoine, I'm going to save Joe and Clark for last for his rant because,
Oh God.
well, yeah, Joe's,
What Joe? Oh, Joe in here? Oh
yeah,
yeah, I definitely want to talk to
well,
Joe.
yeah, because the Mets are 17-7. I'm setting Joe up here, and all is
Hey, the
bad in
Mets
Met.
been
All
the
right,
pitching's been great though.
all is bad because Soto's not to Joe's expectation. But we'll leave that for towards the end. Kenny, go ahead.
Yeah, what's up, Kenny?
Hey, you guys
Yep.
hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. What's up? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm actually on my way to the airport to go to the draft.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
So
Have you been to Green Bay before?
yeah, I've been to a few Jet games out there. So
Okay.
it's a nice town. Yeah, it's very nice, and it's actually this is actually going to be my first draft attending since way back in the '90s when they were at Radio City Music Hall.
Okay. Oh wow.
So
Okay. Yeah, it's Green Bay's a pain in my ass to get to, but yes, like it is a nice city once you actually get there. But it's hard to
you
get there.
know, well, it's good that I got a direct flight to Green Bay,
Oh,
which is good.
lucky for you. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
you
my
definitely balling there.
yeah. Yeah, my
Yeah,
good
that
my
ain't
good friend
cheap.
Anthony hooked me
That
up.
ain't cheap, man. Trust me, I know.
Well, I was fortunate enough to go all expenses paid,
Oh, word. Okay.
which is good. Yeah, yeah, through DraftKings, through a good friend of mine. But listen, are the Jets going to throw a monkey wrench into this and take Sanders if he's there at 7?
No, no,
No,
no,
right?
nah.
What do you
That's
think? And now, and in the later rounds, obviously, throwing shit at the wall. Are they going to take a quarterback in the later rounds? You think?
I think so. Yeah, I would. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, but I think they will at some point there. Again, we talk about McCord, like Quentin Ewers from Texas, who they met with him at the Texas Pro Day. Uh, I'll throw Dylan Gabriel out there. Probably I'm a little bit more or less, inclined to think they would take him. Although, he's a, solid option there, probably like in round 6 or so. Riley Leonard, another guy, like helped Notre Dame get to the championship before they lost to Ohio State there. Very athletic. Aaron Glenn, from what I understand, likes athletic quarterbacks. So, you could definitely see a guy like Riley Leonard come in there and they try to develop him and, see what he could do. But yeah, I think those are possible options there. I'll throw Will Howard in there too as well. Somebody I don't
Yep.
think is
And
getting a lot of praise either.
out of all the names you mentioned, I'll if he's there in third round, I don't possibly McCord. That's who I want. I'll take a flyer on
Whereas
him. Why not?
it's a lot of momentum, especially it's a lot of Jet fans that are Syracuse people. So yeah, I definitely think it's been a lot of momentum trying to get Kyle McCord there. He did really well last year for the Orange there. Outside of probably that game against Pitt where he ended up throwing like 5 interceptions, I thought he was really good.
Didn't Tommy
Well,
DeVito go to
listen,
Syracuse?
Yes, he did.
that's Tommy Cutlets.
I need him on my team.
Tommy
But
Cutlets.
listen, Antoine, always a pleasure, and I do have an opportunity tonight. I'm actually meeting with Goodell.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, yep, I do have that opportunity tonight. So it's gonna be a good weekend, and hopefully casino nearby. So that's where I'll
Yeah,
be after midnight.
they got some good restaurants that are close by to
Yep.
Lambeau as well. So like check those out too.
Mm.
If I can help you in any kind of way, cause I've been up there a couple of
Oh, I
times,
know
just let me
that.
know.
You got it. You got it. And I'm waiting now with open ears for Joey and Clark to
Well,
rip the
well,
Mets like
Kenny, are you
17 and
Kenny? Are
7.
you going to boo Goodell like everybody else?
Well, I'm gonna actually be sitting at a table with him, so it should be interesting. Should be
Joe,
interesting. So
Joe,
I'll keep my
that's all
comments.
right. Yeah,
I'll keep
No,
them
no,
Ken,
no,
light.
Kenny's
don't put the man
Ken,
on the spot like that, man.
Man,
Like
I'm
no,
messing with him.
Kenny's the guy. Hey, Petey, Kenny's the guy on the cruise. He sits in the captain's table. That's Kenny. I mean, come on.
I
yeah,
know.
don't put.
Easy
Yeah,
to deal with.
Antoine, I just spent 2 weeks in Spain, Italy, and France, and one day I went home, make sure the house was still standing, and jumping on a plane to Green Bay,
Around the
as
world in
Joe
90
Gringo says.
days.
Yeah, you sound like
Around the
sound like
world in 90 days.
that sound like my summertime plans. Like that's basically what I do in the summertime. I
Man,
barely come
Antoine,
home
you
and
hit
I'm
it on the
traveling.
head. This dude's balling, man.
I told like that's what I said. Yeah, you get a direct flight to Green Bay. You're balling. Yeah, you're balling. Like I know how much that plane ticket is. Like yeah, you can't fool me with your game, sir.
Yeah,
All right,
Kenny, be
all
well.
right.
Have a good one. All right. Thanks for
I
coming in.
can't.
Yeah,
I
All
I'm
right.
listening.
I
Yeah, I
Okay,
can't
Kenny.
wait for
Yeah,
Joey.
Antoine, we don't need to make an intro for Joe. Joe, hello.
oh
Speaking of not bowling, let's talk about my New York Jets. The epitome of the opposite of bowling. Uh, anyways, forward. What's up, Anton? What's going on,
hey
brother?
Joe, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I got thank God the Mets are doing good because my football team is. Look. I'm not expecting anything, but the fact that everybody has us picking offensive linemen. I see Samini has us taking the third offensive lineman in the
Yeah.
draft. The kid from Texas. Like I really. That's
Kelvin
why.
Banks.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Not only am I not getting the best offensive lineman, I'm getting the third offensive lineman in this draft. You got to be kidding me. For a team that has no skill players at all, maybe one or two on the whole team. I mean, it's unbelievable. And
I,
let me tell you something. I'm one of those guys. I want Sanders. I'm telling you right now, it's going to come back to bite them in the butt when he passes them by at 7. He ends up somewhere else. I'm telling you, man. I, I something about that kid, man. There's something about the blood. I believe in the bloodlines. I've always been one of those guys. The bloodlines are very important when it comes to his father playing, his father being an all-time great, by the way. I think this kid's gonna be cool. We don't have a quarterback. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you want to tell me what's his name is Fields? I don't
Bills.
know. I don't know about that. I mean, but, that could be a 1-year deal. We can get out of that contract in 1 year, and then next year we got to draft a quarterback, and that's what they're hoping for. But I do not want an offensive lineman 2 years in a row, two nondescript players, where the freaking Giants get Neighbors, the best receiver, and they get Carter, the next LT. I never get a sexy pick. All I get are the nondescript linemen. Who cares? Boring as can be. I don't want. Give me a break. Look, I want to be entertained now. My team sucks. I'm tired of losing every year. Can you at least fucking entertain me a little bit, please? Excuse my French. I'm tired of the boring ass offense every year. There's nothing to get excited about. I mean, give me a break, man. God, they're so boring. They have no idea what they're doing. It's a disgrace. I'm sorry. By the
Okay,
way,
so
the Mets. I'm happy they're 17-7. But can Soto look? He's getting $1 billion. Can he hit a little bit, please? Can he at least hit a fly ball once in a while to the outfield? Can he show me that he has a little power? I mean, you got to be kidding me. He's the weak link on the whole team. It's
oh
unbelievable.
come on, no, oh come on, you taking it
Antoine,
way
this is
too,
all
you
you,
taking it way.
Antoine.
No,
Oh my
hold on.
god.
First of all,
Oh my God.
Ventos like he isn't like I think he's playing a little bit better, but Ventos has been awful. So you
No,
can't
he's
say
kind of
you
yeah.
cannot
He's
say Soto is the weak link of the team.
but he's making like lunch money compared to. I mean, Soto's
But
making
you
a
said it's the
billion.
weak link of the team. Like
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
trying to
but
be like
it's the money, man. The money. He got to give me more than what he's giving me. I mean, he's doing nothing every night. These games, what does he get? He gets a walk here or there. He gets a little single through second base, and that's it. That's what he does. Give me a break, man. I'm
eh,
telling you,
eh,
this guy's going to be a bust.
we.
If he's Jason Bay 2.0, I mean, only the Mets.
Jason Bay
All
is
right,
wild, Joe. Come on.
let me unpack. That's a lot to unpack. So
Yeah, unpack
Did I
him.
just hear that?
let me go.
Go
Like
ahead.
I'm gonna
Don't
start it with the Jet
interrupt him,
stuff.
Joe.
Yeah, do
All right,
football first for me.
let's go with the Jet stuff first. First of all, like y'all Jets fans, and I'm not lumping Joe like anybody else like I'm trying to just generalize it.
Well,
Y'all
Beningo,
Jet
you can say
fans,
Beningo because Beningo and I
like
agree on the
a
same
lot.
stuff with the Jets.
Here's what I'll say. Like y'all bitched and complained about the offensive line for so many years, and then now you have a chance to fortify that in one draft where you get two bookend tackles back to back. Yes, it's not the sexy pick, but guess what? Like it is like you need the offensive line is like it's the heart of an offense. Like I feel like you have to have a really good offensive line to be successful. Look at the Eagles. Like and yes, I understand like they didn't necessarily always address the offensive line in the first round, but if you have an opportunity to do so and build those trenches, sort of what the Lions did when Glenn and Dan Campbell came there, I think that's a smart play. I will say this too. You talked about Kelvin Bates. I wouldn't take Kelvin Bates not at 7. So I do agree with you there. Like I think he's very finesse. I don't think he's as tough as talk about Will Campbell and Mimbu there. I would if that case if Mimbu's gone and Campbell, then I would probably go with the tight end or trade down. When I say tight end, like I'm not just talking about Tyler Warren. I'm also talking about Colston Loveland, who I also think is equally as good and has a high grade as well. I think that's a spot possibility. Defensive tackle also a possibility. But yeah, you talk about Shador Sanders. I don't see it, man. I just don't like. I think he can be a decent player, but I don't think he's a Cam. I think Cam Ward is a tremendous. I think he would have been a first round quarterback even last year. He might have not. He might have been like fourth or fifth, but I think Cam Ward would have been a first round pick. I don't think Sador would have
I
been a
know
first round pick.
Sanders doesn't have the arm strength as Ward. I think he's a more accurate passer than Ward. I think he knows how to play the position. I think he's ready to. I mean, he knows how to play the position. No, he's not as athletic. He's not going to run like Ward's going to run. But I mean, I still think he's. I just trust. I'm a big guy, like I told you, on the fact that his father was a great player. He's, I think I just think if the Jets, knowing the Jets, he's going to end up going somewhere else, and it's just, it
Here's
drives
what
me
I'll
crazy, man.
here's what I'll say, Joe. Like next year is gonna be. It looks like it's gonna be a much better quarterback class, and you have Justin Fields in place. If it does not work out, you can cut Justin Fields, get rid of him, and then you're in play for a quarterback next year, like wherever that might be, somewhere in the top 10. If he is the guy, then you run with him. He's 26 years old. Like he's still young enough where he could potentially be a long term solution as starter. So I think the Jets are in a good place where they don't have to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback because I don't think Sanders warrants, being drafted at number 7. Me personally. Now you may feel different, and that's totally fine. Like I think, it's cool to have those disagreements and see where other people come from. But yeah, I think Sanders has average arm strength. He is super accurate, but he also not very mobile. And I think that could, especially in the league like this, where you need people to do like off-platform, off-schedule, moves and getting out the pocket. Sanders. That's not something Sanders does. I think he needs to be in a system where West Coast offense where you're going to throw the ball out, dump it out quickly, and then let the playmakers do the work there. You don't necessarily want him just have, I think he holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and that was kind of the knock on him in Colorado. But you can improve that with coaching, and I think he will in the league there to the point where he could be a, serviceable starter. I think in the his ceiling probably is a lot like Derek Carr. Like I would say, some people would compare him to Geno Smith with less arm talent. I think that's kind of the the place that you put a guy like Shador there on the high end.
Real quick question.
Yeah, what's up?
The Jets defense to me is a big hole going to next year. The defensive line is basically Quinton Williams and a bunch of guys like undrafted free agents. I looked at a couple of things. One is, would you consider taking the defensive tackle from Michigan if he's there? And I
Hell
have
yeah.
and another question I have: what do you think of this kid? I've been watching this kid from Marshall. It's an edge rusher. I think
Mike
his name is
Green. Mike
Green.
Green.
I tell you what, man. You watch his tape. I know it's Marshall. The kid has like everything you want in an edge rusher. I mean, I don't know. Where do you think he goes?
I think I think if he had not had some of the legal stuff, I think he would go in the top 10. But he has some legal stuff there, some sexual assault allegations there. So basically, when he was with Virginia, University of Virginia in
Yeah,
2022 and departed. So it's a lot of things there. But I think he's tremendous. Like he's denied all the allegations there. If you did your homework on what happened in that situation, then I don't necessarily have a problem with teams taking him very high because I think what he put on tape. I think he's tremendous. Like I think he's arguably the best pass rusher in this year's draft, and I truly believe like he'll probably go somewhere in the teens to maybe 20s. But if he was a lot of people talked about his being a little bit smaller, but I think he would have been a top 10 pick had not had that legal trouble.
because I'm worried
So
about our pass rushing still. I
no,
mean,
I agree.
you're asking
I agree
Jermaine
with you.
Johnson coming off a major injury, and let's be honest, the McDonald, except for the first 8 or 9 weeks where he was really good, he disappeared the last 7 8 weeks, and that's having what's his name on the other side. You would think that would have helped him, Riddick.
Oh, you mean
Red,
Reddick?
Reddick on the
Well,
other side.
well,
He
that
did
really
nothing.
didn't. Well, let's be
Reddick disappeared, Joe.
that really didn't help either because he
No,
was
I know.
he was on a milk carton for a little bit. But
I hear
and
you.
all jokes aside, like Will McDonald the second year, like he had some ups and down, like peaks and valleys too as well. It'd be games where he had like 2 or 3 sets, and then other ones where he didn't have any. So, but I think he had a really good year, especially considering his rookie year in the league. But I agree with you. I think pass rushers they need. I think they need to address it too. You can never have too many pass rushers, and you don't know if Jermaine Johnson is going to start out slow. I think Jermaine's going to have a really good year. If I had to bet, probably like 7 or 8 sacks, but to have somebody else in addition to that, I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world either.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Antoine, are you shocked that the Jets picked up? Because I know I'm not trying to, you didn't think they would. I thought they would have, but are
Oh,
you
all the
shocked that?
options.
Yeah, like with Jermaine.
Shocked? No, I'm not shocked.
Okay.
I was a little surprised, but yeah, I'm not shocked either. But I mean, Jermaine is talented. It's fuck. Like, I mean, you can't deny that. It was just I didn't know how they might. I didn't know how they would feel about him coming off an Achilles injury, but they must feel really good. I know Aaron Glenn spoke about Jermaine, at the owners meeting a little bit and said he was working his ass off to try to get back, and I don't doubt that at all because that's just determination that Jermaine has. But yeah, I was a little surprised by that, but not shocked, but just tad surprised there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were to try to work out some kind of long term deal with him.
Did Antoine spend? I'm sorry. Did Jermaine? Was he at the facility during his rehab? So did Glenn get eyes on? Do you think that helped if he was present? Because he wasn't like working out elsewhere, right? He was there.
Yeah, I think for as I know, I think he's been around the facility. So yeah, so I think that probably had a lot to do with it too as well. That's why I think Aunt Glenn knows he's working his ass off, and that's just the type of guy Jermaine has always been. Like, and I've known him since he was at Florida State, and they talked about how hard work and determination was there, and he really changed the culture of that FSU program. And yeah, they had a down year last year, but I know when he was there, they went, they started to come up. They were 5-7, and ended up going, winning 10 games after that, and winning the ACC, a little bit, for years after that. But I think he really set the trend for that program there, and really get them back to prominence at least for a little bit.
Thank
All
you,
right, Steve.
Antoine. I want to get Steve, and
Yeah.
then I have a question for you about Brees Hall after Steve. But go ahead, Steve.
Appreciate it, Mr. Stanley. Thank you for hanging out with us today. How you doing, sir?
Now, please call me Antoine, please. But yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
Well, thank you. Just two fast things here. I know right around this time last year, right? I think it was the night before the draft. JFM had those tweets that kind of hinted that he
Yes.
might be taking a Fredo
Yeah,
boat
very
ride.
cryptic.
Yeah, and then the next day
Yeah.
he went. I guess number one, do you see any moves before, during, or after the draft, trade wise on the horizon? And number two, depending on that and who we draft, we might be, I think Joe and some other people brought it up. We're probably going to be short weapon wise. Anybody you see us targeting via trade or free agency after the draft?
I guess that would depend. I don't know if necessarily name because I guess it depends on who is available and who what teams might do in the draft. So it's kind of hard to say like a specific name, kind of like hypothetical question or whatever. But I think they're going to be active in the free agent market after the draft. I will say that. I think Muji spoke about that too as well. The Jets still have some money available free agency wise. So. Um, yeah, I definitely think you can see they still have some holes, and I think they're probably still going to have some holes after the draft. So I think they could be active in free agency too. I mean, they have $27 million to spend. Like a lot of that will go towards their draft picks there. So you'll probably have about 16, 17 million, left in money. So yeah, I definitely think they can fill up a few holes there. Whether get that defensive tackle or I think they still need some safety help too. You're probably not going to get a top line safety unless you were to take one at like maybe 42. Maybe Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, possibly be an option there. But if you don't address it there, then that may be something that they look forward to towards too in the free agency department.
Do you see any moves coming? Are we possibly going to trade anybody before the draft here, or maybe after the draft? Or
Not before the draft. No, after the draft, maybe. I guess like, it depends on what they do in the draft specifically. So it's no way to necessarily know who that might be without necessarily having the draft first.
and then last one, I guess the Lions they might not want to pay. Was it Jamison Williams? Am I saying his name right?
Jameson Williams, yes, Jameson Williams,
He's not
yeah.
going to be a target though, I guess, right? Because he's in the same draft as Garrett. I think it was picked two spots after him. Forget it, right? They're not going to trade for him, pay him and Garrett and Sauce. give it up, right? It's not
And,
going
and
to
then,
happen.
and then, I mean, also in addition to that, I mean, Williams has some issues like off the field too, as well. So yeah, I don't know necessarily know you want to, I don't know. Glenn knows him well, so if they were to do that, then they obviously feel comfortable of doing that. But I don't know. I don't know if the Jets, one, I don't know if the Lions necessarily want to give up on him too soon yet. Per se, but I also don't think the Jets would, pay him. Let's decide to pay him, X amount of money now, considering those issues too as well.
Thanks, Steve. Mark, go ahead, and then I got a couple of quick ones for Antoine.
Yeah, yeah, I got to get out of here in a little
Yeah.
bit too. So I got
Are you
about 10,
going?
15 minutes.
Yeah, Antoine, are you going on Jake this morning?
Already went.
Oh, good.
We
Nice.
already went. We 8:15. All right, bright and
Man,
early.
All right,
nice.
awesome.
Yeah,
Antoine, thanks for being in, man. You're very gracious with your time. Always appreciate talking to you, man. Thanks again for being in here. So Brees Hall has been, you've been in here before. Brees Hall
Yeah,
has
no
been a
problem.
lightning rod in our room. I see Yuji down, a listener. He's been talking about that the Jets could get some quality, potentially get quality running back play out of fourth, fifth, even round picks in this running back. Like it's a deep running back draft. At the same time, you've got a team where you mentioned Fields' ability to process, and if they're saying they're going to be a run first team and
Yeah.
parting ways with Brees, where do you think Muji and Glenn view Brees? And it sounds like you don't think he's going to get moved before the draft, but how do they view him? Do you think they could even take a guy in the fourth and fifth and then move Brees? Like that doesn't seem likely to me. But what's your perspective on him?
I think they should just keep him for a year. I mean, if he goes out for it and has an incredible year, then guess what? You get a compensatory pick for him, which will probably turn into about a third round pick for him anyway, if you end up letting him walk. Or you could decide to re-sign him if you want to too. So I don't see. There's been a lot of talk amongst fans about trading Brees Hall. I don't see why you would do that. I think he's been misused. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, you had an offensive coordinator that had no idea what Brees Hall's skill set was once he got to the team. So I definitely think that you have to factor that in too. And also, I feel like there were spots at times last year where Aaron Rodgers kind of checked out of some running plays too, and decided to chuck the ball, especially late in the season. So that also brought down his carry. Like I still think Brees is a talented running back. Maybe did we overrate him a little bit? Probably, yeah. Thinking he's a little bit more like Christian McCaffrey. He does have a similar skill set, but maybe lack of the production. But he is a dynamic running back that can do a lot of different things in the offense, and I just don't think he's always had the opportunities to show that. And I think this year could be a really good opportunity on the extra offense to show what he could do in that offense too. Because if it's a lot like with the Lions as their offense to do, then Brees is going to be a good pass catcher out the backfield. There, it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if he would be the Jets second leading receiver this year. To be honest with you, that's how dynamic of a player he is. So I wouldn't trade him, to be honest with you, despite it being a really good running back class too. But the answer to your question, if they do go running back later on, I guess day two. You talk about Jenkins from Ohio State there. I think Henderson's going to be gone. He might go around one, for what I understand too, as well. You talk about Caleb Johnson from Iowa, R.J. Harvey, who a lot of people like from UCF too as well. Damian Martinez, I think, is another guy that doesn't necessarily get a lot of love too. Not necessarily the fastest guy, but man, he is a hard guy to take down. So yeah, he's a guy that I would definitely love to see. Love to see what he can do in the league once he gets there.
Thank you, Antoine. Good, Pete.
Yeah, and also Scatterboo. I'll throw Scatterboo too, and DJ Giddens too. It's such a deep running back class as well. That Dylan Sampson, another guy. He just kind of puts the ball on the ground too. So there's a lot of running backs in this class that I definitely think could produce in this league.
Yeah, Antoine, I just saw a mock from somebody that comes in here, a draft guy. He has Stewart going to the Jets at 7. That would be a curveball.
E.
I think Jet fans would throw remotes on that one.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of that for a few reasons. One, just a lack of production in college. Like I think, he is talented, and I think anybody can see that if you watch him on film. But 4.5 sacks in college. I mean, I don't feel comfortable taking that type of player in round. I mean, in the top 10, put it that way. In round one, maybe towards the end of round one, but yeah, I would definitely I would be scared to take a player like that early. To be honest with you, if you're going pass rush and you want pass rush help, I'll go with I think it was Joe that said that, or it might have been Kenny or Joe, whoever one said it, like Mike Green. Like I would go with Mike Green from Marshall. Like I think he is that talented of an edge rusher, and to me, the second best pass rusher in this draft, that's still Duke Carter.
All right, and all right. So as we wrap this up, Antoine, again, you're always gracious. Thanks, man.
But we'll have any more questions?
Uh, I have one. I have two, but they're one is
I could ask one.
basketball related.
No, no, I don't think the Knicks are gonna win the
Wow.
championship. So
No,
there you go.
I didn't. Oh, wait, I'm trying to get through the first round, man. Are they going to get through the first round?
I think so, but yeah, I think people thought it was a slam. Detroit's good, man.
Yeah, they are, man.
The Cade
Listen, folks.
Cunningham, I'm telling you, like they got a problem. Like they didn't. The Knicks could be down 0-2 right now, going to Detroit easily. Now they had that big run there. They won game one, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a long series. Like I had the Knicks winning in seven. I'd still maintain that, but yeah, it's gonna be a long series for them for sure.
The offense can't be four guys standing around and Brunson going to the hole getting fouled. That's not a legitimate offense.
I mean,
We got
no,
Mister
and also they look tired
Francesa
too.
here.
They look tired at times too. I mean, they look beaten down. So, yeah, if they end up getting bounced in the first round, man,
Uh,
you gotta look
Tom
at Thibodeau. You gotta look at Thibodeau, and be like, yeah, man, he probably gotten them as far as he can, and it might be time for somebody else to come in and take over.
agreed. Coach, go ahead.
What's up, fellas? How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. How you
Cool.
doing?
Doing good. I'm doing good. My question for you, Anton. You were saying that Stewart has a lack of production. Do you see any similar? I know they play different positions. Do you see any similarities between him and Joey Porter Jr.? I mean, Joey Porter Jr. I don't think he recorded a pick in college. And he's come into the NFL and been a pretty decent cornerback for us. So, do you kind of see that same similar trajectory for Stewart, or you think it's a little bit different since he's a D lineman?
Who are you talking about? Who you comparing Stewart to? I'm sorry, I
College
missed you.
college production. I was comparing his college production to Joey Porter Jr. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Joey
yeah,
Porter. I think
yeah.
he either only had one pick or he didn't have no pick in college. So I was just seeing like
Yeah, that's
what their
different.
similar trajectory.
Yeah, I think that's a different situation where like cornerback, I don't necessarily. I mean, I do care about interceptions, but it's not like it's the end all be all. I guess sacks kind of similar type thing, so I can kind of see where you're going. But I think with Porter, it was kind of like that lack of production knocked him to the spot that he was. Like I think he got picked in this like later on in the draft, but
32. We picked
yeah,
him
that's
at
what I thought.
32.
That's what I thought. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was, I thought that's about where he should have been picked there. Stewart, I think he could be picked like around that same spot if that was up to me, probably around the 30, 32, 33, like around there. He might turn out to be a really good player, but again, like I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking a player that early at seven, like just for my purposes. 'Cause that doesn't mean he's talented. It's just a matter of it's just questions there as far as the lack of production in college. That's all I'm saying.
Understood. So you more so on on the wavelength of everybody else, take an offensive lineman, or maybe Tyler Warren if that's the
Yes.
BPA right there.
Oh yeah, I keep saying Loveland too. Like I keep throwing Loveland out there too because I don't feel like he's getting a lot of love. Like a lot of people just throw Tyler Warren in there and like well deserved. Like I think Tyler Warren is tight end one, but I think Colston Loveland, especially if the Jets were to somewhat trade back into the draft, then trade down, then I think Loveland would make a lot of sense too because I think he can do a lot of good things out there on the field as well, and a really good natural pass catcher. I just don't think he didn't have the most he didn't have the production Warren had because again, like they didn't have a great quarterback situation in Michigan after JJ McCarthy left.
Understood. And last thing, are you on the same wave with June and the rest of them boys about getting rid of Sauce, Brees,
No,
and all? Okay, okay.
no.
Just had to had to
Why
see.
you trying to get rid of the Jets good players?
Look, me and Mark be trying to figure that out every day, and they give us every excuse and scenario in the world as to why to get rid of.
Yeah, yeah, you don't get rid of good players. Like to sign who or to trade for who? Nah, you keep those guys. Like I understand Sauce had a really down year, but two out of two elite years out of three is pretty damn good in this league. So, and I think he's going to be fine. I mean, it, law of the averages, he's probably going to have a down year at some point. It just happened to be last year where they end up winning 5 games. But yeah, I think they're going to be totally fine.
Antoine, at this
See,
point, I'd like to read a prepared statement. I've been
Oh,
told to
oh
say,
God.
listen, every fan is entitled to their opinion. That concludes my prepared statement. Thank you.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay, I thought it was going to be more than that.
you didn't catch Mark's sarcasm there?
No, I did. I thought he was going to say a lot more than that, though.
Yeah, no, Antoine. I think the Jets should keep you know most of these. Now, I think Brees is the odd man out, but I do think if he
Yeah,
does, I do think this may be wild, but if Brees has a really good year, like a career year, I think there's a chance the Jets could, potentially tag him next year.
yeah,
So they don't,
maybe.
so especially if they have a decent year. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, running backs are a dime a dozen. So, I mean, you could franchise them. You could, let them walk. It depends on what they want to do. Because you let him walk and he has a tremendous year, you're going to get a third round pick anyway. So, yeah, I think, necessarily wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. But yeah, I think, I think they're in a good spot where they should keep Brees Hall at least for this year and just kind of play out the string anyway, and just see what happens.
Uh, Vezo and then Steve will close it out. All right.
Yo, what's going on, Antoine?
Hey, how
Appreciate the
you
call.
doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. I got two really quick questions. The first one is, let's say Mimbu and Campbell are gone before the Jets pick at 7, and they're sitting there, and they have Tyler Warren and Genty still on the board. Who do you think that they'll lean more towards as far as like with that selection, assuming like that's probably the two highest guys on their board at that point? And then the other question I had was, what type of production, or I guess kind of like stat wise, do you think it'll take Justin Fields to have this year for them to think maybe, hey, maybe we don't draft a quarterback in the first round next year? Like, what do you think it will take? That will it have to be top 5, top 10 performance? Like what does that kind of look like in your opinion?
To answer your second question, like I don't know if it's necessarily a baseline in terms of stats, but you just want to make sure like he can be a point guard and distribute the ball where it needs to be, and he doesn't turn the ball over. I think if he does those things, and he's gonna run the ball like a ton. I imagine. I think they're gonna rely a lot running the ball this year, but use a lot of play action. But yeah, if he can distribute the ball and doesn't turn the ball over, and the Jets can win 7, maybe 8 games, which I think, that might be the high end of it. But if that would be the case, then yeah, I think you bring him back another year and just kind of see what he can do. He's under contract, so uh, just you can play that string out too. So I definitely think, if he does that, it gets an excess of maybe total of 30 plus touchdowns, rushing and passing. Then I think you feel comfortable bringing him back a second year. In terms of your first question, as far as Genty and Warren. I think they would look at Warren. I think they, from what I understand, like, they really considering Warren anyway, even with Mimbu and, Campbell, whoever else might be on the board there. I mean, Tyler Warren's an exceptional athlete there, really good inline blocker. Doesn't necessarily separate always from defenders, but can go up and get the ball at his highest point there. Super athletic. Can tell one, he was a former high school quarterback at Mechanics, Virginia, and also you can also tell he's a former basketball player, just kind of the way he boxes out over defenders and, goes up and gets the ball. And, he also can run the ball too, as well, out the backfield, can play a little bit of H-back too. So you can line a lot of help up in a lot of different spots. So yeah, I think, you could use him as a lot as a chess piece and a lot of different things you do on the offensive end. Just like, again, a guy like Colston Loveland, another guy you can do very similar things too. So yeah, I think if that case, I think you would take Tyler Warren, which I think would be the better option. But I think Genty is an exceptional player, and I don't think he gets past 10. Like if that would be the case, like I think if he was there with the Bears at 10, like you just run to the podium and give Caleb Williams another option on the offensive end.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Steve, go ahead.
Antoine, your last one's going to be a banger here because I am one of those boys that wants to send Sauce and Brees and all those guys on a one way trip out of here. And the
Hold on,
reason,
like, can I ask why?
yeah, happy to tell you. Reason why, and I'm not opposed to keeping these guys if they're on a team friendly deal, but two things. Number one, I get the impression with some of these guys, they don't necessarily want, and I don't blame them, by the way. All they've done is lose. They don't necessarily want to be here. And number two, by the time we're ready to roll, they ain't got to be ready to roll. So, and I think if you can sort of restart the clock, if you can get 2 first round picks for Garrett, avoid paying him, I think I might look into that. But these are all talking points you've heard before. I just buy into some of them. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Sauce legitimately wants to be a Jet. Like he
I
wants
want to
this
keep him.
law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he wants to stay there. Garrett, I don't know. I can't really speak for Garrett, so I don't know whether he does or not. I think he's been really quiet. Obviously, he was unhappy last year with the situation with Aaron. Especially when Devontae came, his target is kind of limited. But now he's going to be the guy, and now he's teamed up with his former college teammate in Justin Fields. So we'll see how it goes. I think a lot of like he hates losing, and like I totally get it too. But you do have that fifth year option protection. But yeah, if somebody wants to give me a first round pick, 2 first rounds for Garrett, like I definitely would highly consider it. Although I'm not in, the business of trading great players, but 2 first round picks is still 2 first round picks. And like you said, you do have to pay the guy. And so I would consider it. I wouldn't necessarily say I would do it, but I would definitely consider it.
Are we sure he's all that good? I mean, he played with a Hall. I know Rodgers is not what he once was, but he played with a Hall of Fame quarterback. He didn't really rock and roll last year. And you have guys that are Lazard is definitely worse than Garrett Wilson. Correct? Can we agree with that?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And Lazard did not outperform Garrett number wise, but look what Rodgers did for Lazard. Look what he did for Devontae. It works with
Well,
everybody else in Rodgers except
well,
this guy. I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
here's the thing. You're talking about 8 years or like 5 years of chemistry as opposed to really a year. Like, I mean, you could call 2023 is a wash, basically, because you
sure.
played 4 plays. But yeah, basically, like, you're talking about a year of chemistry. And like, he had chemistry with those guys, like, undeniable chemistry. So, of course, he's going to look to those guys a little bit more. And let's be real, like, he was feeding Devontae Adams, the forcing the ball at Devontae at times last year, too. Like, I think we can
100%.
all agree with that too. I think if Garrett, I think Garrett is I don't want to say he's a top 5 receiver, but I think he has the talent to be a top 10 receiver in the league. So wherever you think that, lands him, like I think you keep a guy like that. If you think he's a top 10 talent as far as receiver, he hasn't played like that always. I think he's probably more the top 20 receiver in the league right now, but he can be a top 10 receiver eventually. But I just think he needs to get more consistent quarterback play. And, Rodgers didn't necessarily play well at times either. Although, later on in the season, he started to a little bit outside of the game against the Bills where he was atrocious. But, I think, he started to play a little bit better. And I think Garrett started to play a little bit better too against Miami, both games against Miami.
Here's my last thing for you, and then
Yeah.
I'll disappear and I'll let you roll. Sami, I don't know if you can comment on exactly. I don't think it was you. I think it was Samini, right? Samini said something later on last year that if Rodgers stayed, Garrett was going to maybe demand out here. Can you give us any color on that? You think that was true? And number two, how much of that do you think influenced what happened with Aaron Glenn and Rodgers the other day?
As far as Rich's like a report, like I'm gonna leave that to him. But I've heard similar rumblings. I mean, it's neither here or there now. I mean, it's
Sure.
all a moot point. But I have heard I had heard like similar type of rumblings. But what was the second question you asked?
Yeah, no, no. You think that influenced Aaron Glenn? I mean, you think that if
Nah.
Garrett went in and he said, "I want to keep this guy," they would have kept him, or do you think they made this move at least in part because of Garrett possibly asking out here?
No, I think he kept him because he wants to keep young players too. I think if it was a problem, I think they would have moved on from Garrett. But no, I think they're fine. Like they understand. I think Glenn was asked this at the owners meeting about just Garrett Wilson being unhappy, and Glenn basically said, you know what, that was last year. Like I wasn't the coach then. I don't know what happened, but it's kind of a clean slate for everybody. So I think he's kind of taking that approach too. Like yes, they understand like Aaron Rodgers isn't necessarily, always the easiest person to work with. So I think that's kind of part of the reason, a lot of the reason why they also, decided to move on too, depending on how much you believe as far as the Pat McAfee interview and everything like that. But no, I think they're giving Claire the clean slate, and they end up going to get his college teammate there and giving some chemistry there. I think they would like to keep him, but it's ultimately it's going to be up to Garrett and what he wants to do.
Antoine, can you take Vince's last hand, and then
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
close out.
yeah,
By
yeah.
the way, did you see McAfee turn purple, getting choked out?
Yeah, Gunther choked them out. Like, yeah, like they made it look kind of real too. Like they made it look
Yeah,
really real.
I
Like I thought that
know,
was a good
man.
job.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Rock not returning, but I'll stick to football.
No,
Uh,
go ahead. I'll talk about that too.
all right, we'll definitely talk about. I mean, listen, I hated the main event night too,
I
but
like the main event. I didn't like the finish.
true, true. And I watched The Rock yesterday on McAfee too, and it kind of made everything worse. But um, question for my big thing with the seventh pick is that I think a lot of people are stuck with either Tyler Warren or Membu or Campbell or whoever's there, Graham. I think extra coming over as the passing game coordinator, you would hope that he's focusing on passing the ball. The problem is with the Jets, and I understand they want to be run first, is that they have absolutely nobody to throw the ball to. We've seen Alan Lazar as a wideout too. It was a pretty shitty experience. I personally would go Ted McMillan at number 7, just because right now Tyler Johnson's our 3rd overall pick. Is there any talk of McMillan, or if somebody's going to go on the offense, it's going to be a Tyler Warren? Because I think you can get a day 2, like the kid Fanning from Bowling Green. I think you can get another
Yeah.
serviceable tight end in later on in the draft if you don't go with Tyler Warren.
Yeah, as far as McMillan, like he's been sliding to the point where he might not even be the first receiver taken. Now it might be Matthew Golden, who had a fast combine and really jumping up draft boards. Whereas McMillan, like, there's been a lot of questions about his speed or lack thereof, and some people may be over analyzing it just because of the way he played on the field. And I think his tape looks good there, but yeah, there are a lot of questions of, like, can he separate regularly from defenders in the league? I think it's going to be taken by a team, probably playoff team in the 20s that could use some wide receiver help as well. But yeah, it hasn't been any talk as far as McMillan been talked, not that high anyway. But I think I would say Matthew Golden's probably, I feel comfortable saying this, although anything can change. But I feel comfortable saying I think Golden's probably going to be taken a little bit higher than McMillan. And if you're looking at wide receiver options later on in the draft, then talk about Beck from TCU, Jalen Wars from Utah State, Jaden Higgins, Iowa State. Jets love their Iowa State guys. Isaiah Bond, although some allegations recently come to light too. And the guy that I really like, that I think he's really gotten a lot of traction in the draft, is Kyle Williams from Washington State. I definitely think he's a guy that could be a big time star later on in this draft too. Obviously, had a lot of success with the Cougars, and I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be really good in the league, and is very underrated. So yeah, if you want to take a guy later on in the draft as far as wide receivers, maybe in the 3rd round, maybe second. Oh, we heard 2nd round maybe for Kyle Williams. Like, I definitely think he's a guy to look for.
Do you like Fanning from Bowling Green?
Yeah, I do. Like, I had him mocked, with the Jets too. Like, if they end up taking, Membu from Missouri, like I had them taking Fannin from Bowling Green there. He's not a great blocker, but as far as receiver, yeah, I definitely think he's tremendous. He's still new to position, very green, so you still have a lot of upside with him. Somebody kind of reminded me, like, he kind of ran like he's a similar player to, like, Randy McMichael for the Dolphins back in the day. And yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely think he's very he could definitely run a lot. He runs a lot like him, so I definitely can see that.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no
Thanks, Vince.
problem.
All right, Antoine. Thank you, man. Appreciate you as always. Talk to you soon, and have a great day, man.
All right, y'all take it easy.
All
Thanks,
right.
Antoine.
Good question, Vince.
I'm afraid of who we're throwing the ball to.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap up, guys. Appreciate you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. That was a great room. Antoine was terrific. Great questions. Great spaceman.
Yeah, I see it. Brittany, Rusty, Jetstream, UG. I see you. J Mick, Bill Thumb. What up? Dan Moscow. Hello, Charles. Posh coming in this morning. See you all later. Have a great day. Mike D, I see you. Rudy. Be well, guys. See you tomorrow on draft day.